Hi all, welcome to the Circuit Climbing's review of the Pan-Am Championships for Combined, which just happened in LA over the weekend. Obviously the big thing was it was also an Olympic qualifying event, so what that meant is that the winner of the men's and the winner of the women's, as long as they came from a country which hadn't filled their quota, would get a ticket to the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. So I just want to discuss a few things today. I'm not going to go in depth into the review because I wasn't there. I really feel if I'm reviewing a comp, it's better if I was there because I get a feel of it from the ground. But this time, what was different was I was watching a live stream. So the IFSC chose not to send me to this event. They used a local photographer instead. And I was watching it here in Switzerland. Now, that's quite a different experience for me. For the most part, I'm at every World Cup. I'm around the athletes. I'm around the vibe, the energy. I get a really good understanding of what's happening. I could take away a lot of it from the live stream and from what I heard from people who were there afterwards, but it's never going to be the same as being there. So first up, let's just start with huge congratulations to Colin Duffy and Alana Yip. Incredibly well-deserved winners. I'm beyond happy for both of them. I think they both climbed superbly. Unfortunately, we only had a live stream of the finals, so didn't get to see them in semis and didn't get to see them in the pre-qualification round, which understandable, but if you're expending the resources of sending a webcasting crew out, I would have loved to have seen at least semis. I think for the athletes as well, to have that exposure is really important for them because for some of them that could be the biggest competition they've ever done or potentially ever will do. So it kind of seemed a shame to me that that wasn't broadcast. Luckily, we did get lots of information through Instagram, through social media, things like that. I didn't really watch any of the live streams on Instagram or any of that, purely because the quality is really low, the angles are really bad, there's no commentary, it doesn't engage me, so I didn't feel a need. But yeah, on the whole, incredibly happy for Colin and Alana. As I said, well-deserved winners, but let's dig into a few things I noticed about the competition. Now, we'll start with the speed because obviously that's the first, and I thought the speed comp was really well run. I know there are a lot of detractors for speed out there, but at the end of the day, speed is exciting. You may have some inherent bias towards it and go, oh, it's not real climbing, yada, yada, yada. We know that, go away. It's far more interesting for me to see how the climbers have adapted and risen to face the challenge that is in front of them. And you can really see from the times that it's just astonishing how well the climbers have converted themselves into competent speed climbers. I remember a couple of years ago, Jens from 8a.nu was saying that he thought if a guy could run under 8.5 seconds, he would be in with a shout to win speed at Olympics. Now you're going to have to run close to 6. So the progression within speed has been incredible. So first thing we saw in speed is how heartbreaking it can be. So for Emma Hunt, a phenomenally talented young climber from the US, speed was really her ace in the hole. That was where she was going to get the one, and then she's good at the other disciplines, but she's phenomenal at speed. But what we saw is she struggled, the pressure got to her, and she ended up with a 7th. And right away, that's just soul crushing for someone who's such a talented speed climber, and she was on the back foot. And, you know, the flip side was you had Andrea Rojas, of course, coming out on top. That was pretty much to be expected. You had Valentina Aguada getting a 2nd. That wasn't expected, and that was huge for her in the points. That was super important. And then beyond that, speed was pretty much where we expected them to be, but it's such a risk, such a gamble, and as we saw with Emma, if it doesn't go well, it can really scupper your whole day. Then we moved on to the bouldering. Now the first problem I quite enjoyed. I thought it was a good problem. Obviously we saw Alana do it quickly. We saw Becca Frangos, I believe, do it as well. really looked comfortable, showed how the boulder was supposed to be done. I enjoyed the boulder. I thought it was visually pleasing from a photographer's perspective. It would have ticked all the boxes for me. I would have been happy to shoot that. Counterpoint, jump across to woman's boulder number 2. Now, woman's boulder number 2 climbed well, but I thought from the point of being part of an event with spectators, it was a bit of a disaster. And the reason I felt that way was that if you saw the wall, basically it was going across like this, and in the very right hand edge you had problem number 2. In that case, what you're going to want is you're going to want the climbers to be climbing from right to left, facing the vast majority of the crowd. But instead they had them facing to the right almost the whole climb. So they started down here, they went that way. There was one good photo, and I think the only one that was really good on that photo op was probably Becca Frangos of Canada, when you catch the hold on the arete and you flare and you open, very Yanya style, as a lot of people would say. And that would have been a good shot from the left. But apart from that, all the spectators weren't seeing the climbers' faces at all, because then they went to the right again, and then they lay back with their back facing to the left to the crowd and went up to the top. And I was really disappointed by that, because I think that it's really important for the spectators to be able to see the climbers, to see the facial expressions, to see the tension on the climbers' faces as they're committed, especially on slow boulders. Slow boulders are much more emotional than fast boulders. And so yeah, that one was really a letdown for me. On the flip side, problem number 3, I also didn't like. And the reason I didn't like it is because black holds, black volumes used in an overhang makes it seem really dark and dingy, and especially because it was in a gym and so there was a lot of chalk and rubber on the walls already, it really kind of looked a bit grubby on the live stream and the contrast wasn't there. Now, it's not that I'm anti-black holds, I just think that black holds have to be used in the right environment on the right angles. So Flat Hold, who really revolutionized comp climbing with their range of volumes that came out 2013, 2014, and their signature color was black, and they work amazingly, but if they're covered in chalk, they can look a bit grimy, and if they're covered in chalk and then slapped under a roof, they just don't look professional to me. To me, it looked a little bit too gym comp. I thought the problem climbed well until the last move. Really disappointed in the last move. I felt that it was just out of reach for Valentina Aguada, and that could be the difference between Olympic qualification and not for her. And that, that's something the route setters, who are fantastic at their jobs, don't get me wrong, but they have to get that right. You cannot put a move where an athlete won't be getting the top on it. It just, no. And when I say an athlete not getting the top, I don't mean because of talent. I mean physically not being able to span the press, and she just physically wasn't able to span the press. And Valentina Aguada also brings me to a point that arose on the first problem. It was poor the length of time it took the official to explain to her that she had to tape for blood. There is a process within the IFSC rules that needs to be followed for blood. She does have to be stopped, it does have to be taped, and it does have to be proven that she's not bleeding through the tape before she can climb. But she was under a lot of pressure already. She kind of knew it was her last attempt, and she probably lost 25 seconds at least to that, and I thought that was poor. And Valentina had been in a really good position going into boulder, and I think that first boulder pretty much broke her head. And then when she got to the third boulder and couldn't span it, I mean, that's just heartbreaking for someone as talented as she is, that's trained so hard. She was pretty much done after bouldering, and that was a huge shame. Speed route, what can I say? I'm a huge fan of Christian Bintama's route setting. I love the fact that he doesn't set resistance to a boulder problem. He just keeps ramping up the difficulty. I think that's a better spectacle. I think it's really good to separate the athletes. There was a little bit of a choke point but realistically there was only 2 athletes in one spot, 2 athletes in another. That's to be expected. I also think it's incredibly hard to set across all the disciplines when they've had to do 3 combined rounds, because at a combined Olympics or at a combined World Champs or something, they do qualifying, they do finals. For them to have had to do pre-qualifying, then finals, for the route setters to gauge their fatigue level, their skin level, everything like that, yeah, I think that's brutally hard. But to come out of it with one top, Lauren Bear, the last climber out, getting the top, incredible finish. And before then even, and you could really see, I thought it was a fantastic job of commentating by Charlie and Megan in the commentary booth, with the tension between Alana Yip and Alessandra Contreras, because it basically came down to which one of them did better on that route. And I know my heart was in my mouth. I was watching it at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and my heart was, it was intense. So that to me, yeah, was just incredible climactic finish to the women's qualifying, to the woman, oh sorry, not to the women's qualifying, to the women's finals. And I thought it was a great event. I'm going to just quickly look at my notes if there's anything else I brought up from there. Yeah, from the live stream perspective, really disappointed in the issues they had with the clocks, things like that. The music cutting over the broadcast was, let's be honest, pretty atrocious. I don't know why the Americans seem to think that they need to pretend they're in a nightclub. I feel that the French do an amazing job with their team of managing the music at events, and going forward I'd like to see a work group or something managing how the competitions are presented and how music and everything is managed, because it just sounded like a bad nightclub. It was a bit rough. I was pretty disappointed in that. Another thing, I hate the graphics. I'm sorry, I know some people get a giggle out of them. I find them demeaning to the athletes, and I feel that they're completely inappropriate. If they were a second and a half long, that's no problem. But they held the athletes there. The athletes would do their little pose, and then you could see them just look confused over, what do I do? Okay, I've done that. So are you still filming? What the hell? And it's all filmed. And then they show this, and everyone's chortling and going, look at the athletes looking angry. No, go away. I don't want that. That to me is shitty. That to me is really poor. Probably my biggest bugbear of the whole competition. I feel if they shorten that to a second and a half per athlete, similar to what they do in motorsport, where you see in Formula One, motocross, things like that, the athlete will turn to the camera, look at the camera, locked and done. All this faffing around is just a bit shit. I'm sorry, it's just, and I'll take the word bit out, because it's just shit. Very anti that. The use of graphics in the lead, I actually liked. I wish they'd had the overlay on a little bit more, but it was really good to see what the athletes had to do to get where they needed to be. In general, I think that's pretty much it for the women. Only thing I'm going to bring up is a round we didn't see, which was qualifications. And that to me, seeing Leslie Romero get knocked out, the strong Venezuelan, incredibly good speed climber, just heartbreaking to get knocked out on a false start. I don't see why false start has to be exclusion from the round in qualifying. To me, you've lost that run. Let's just call that run lost, and you still have one chance. It can undo someone's whole comp, and it just seems, to me it doesn't fit the spirit of the competition. I was really more than a little disappointed by that. Let's go across to the guys event next. And guys event, obviously fantastic win for Colin Duffy. He got there just ahead of Zach Guller and Xander Waller. So all 3 US climbers and at the top of their game. Sean Bailey will have to be disappointed with 4th, but he let himself down in speed, and then he was never given the opportunity to come back in Boulder. and even with a top and lead, it was all over. So before he'd even gone to the wall and lead, there was no way he could have won. And that comes down to the big bugbear of the men's round, which if you look at the IFSC stream and read the comments underneath, everything like that, you'll see a lot of people saying the same thing, which is what was going on with the setting. At this level, you need to separate the climbers, and to have a flash comp where silly mistakes basically influence someone's whole career, it's just not good enough. They've shortened it from 4 boulders to 3 boulders, and in doing that, they've put more pressure on the route setters, but the route setters need to get it right. I'm sure after that round, the route setters were really disappointed. My heart goes out to them because it's a brutally tough job, but those problems just did not do the job. First problem, pretty cool, but a bit easy. Let's face it, a bit easy. Second problem, as opposed to the women's problem I talked about earlier, second problem was in that same right-hand corner, but they faced left the whole time, which I think is much better for the spectators, much better for the crowd. They get to see the faces. Except they did finish in the corner, which means depending on where you're sitting, the climber actually goes out of your sight as they top, which is a bit disappointing, but really a little bit of a nothing problem. Slow problem, but not really an engaging problem. And again, too easy. Third problem, through the roof, much better using the red pockets. I thought that stand out, that vibrance, it gave the climbers a little bit more visibility on the wall. I thought that for the crowd, for the photographers, for the live stream is much more appealing than using the black holds under that roof. Yeah, the problem itself though wasn't really up to par. I mean, you could see that the strong climbers, the US climbers, could comfortably do that figure 4 move. And after that, none of them really looked unduly concerned. You saw them slipping, adjusting position, moving around, not comfortable, but still able to hold on. None of them were at their limit at the top of that. And yeah, it just wasn't good enough to me. I feel that Sean Bailey was on the back foot going into that round. As soon as he had a slip on problem 2, before he had acquired the zone, he knew he was over. And these guys know when it's over because they've observed the boulders, and if they think, oh, that doesn't look hard, or that doesn't look hard, or that doesn't look hard, then if you have a slip on a boulder, you're instantly your head is, I can't make that ground up. And I feel that was the end of the event for Sean Bailey. When he slipped on problem 2, he disengaged. He was done. He was, he did everything possible after problem 2, but it wasn't going to be enough. Problem 3 for Zach Geller, silly slip down the bottom. I can't explain it, and I'm sure it'll haunt him forever. It didn't look like a hard move at all. Even the climbers that were not good boulderers had easily done it. And yeah, that was him done. Similar to Sean, but he still had a chance. Because of his first place in speed, he was still in a strong position with only 4 points going into lead. Even though lead was his weakest discipline, he was in a strong position. If he had flashed that problem, he would have been on 2 points going into lead, and that would have switched things up immensely. So yeah, as I said, bouldering for me on the whole, massive letdown. I think it's visually the most exciting, super engaging. Generally, for myself as a spectator, I find bouldering is the highlight round, speed is second, lead is third. And that's nothing against lead. I purely think that bouldering, we see the hardest climbing. Speed, we see these do or die races, which is so incredibly important. And then by lead, we just have a little bit of comp fatigue. Most of the time for then, we're feeling really uncomfortable if we're close to the athletes. There's a lot of tension, there's a lot of nerves, and it's kind of, you watch 4 minutes of nothing for a minute of something afterwards. To me, it's not the pinnacle of the sport. I much prefer the bouldering for engagement, but that again is just a personal opinion. Christian Bindhammer route again, really enjoyed it. Just a little bit disappointed that there were 2 tops, but look, in route setting, and people have different philosophies. In route setting, for me, on a route at World Cup or international level, no tops, but with separation is good. 1 top fantastic, best possible outcome. 2 tops, okay, not as good as no tops, but still, it's not the end of the world. 3 or more tops is a disaster because you haven't given the climbers opportunity to separate themselves. It's similar to what we experienced in the bouldering in this comp. So yeah, that was about it for me on this event. As I said, just so pleased for Alana. Alana I've known since 2014 or 2015. Always been incredibly impressed by her climbing, her perseverance and her determination. And to see her come so close in Hachioji and again in Toulouse and miss out. If she had fallen the last hurdle here, it would have been pretty gutting. Flip side of that, devastated that we didn't get a South American through. I thought Alessandra Contreras and Valentina Aguado were real chances last weekend, but wasn't to be. Alana got the spot, psyched for her. In the men's again, huge congratulations, Colin Duffy. That was just exceptional. I'm so excited to see what this guy can do on the international stage in adults. And if you see some of my posts about him and I talk about him as a kid, that will now transition into young man. But when I first met Colin, he was first year Youth B. He really was a kid. And I've been privileged enough to see him grow, to see him develop, and to see him go from this young kid to an incredible young man, an incredibly talented young athlete who I believe will be a standout for the US for the years to come. And I actually put him down as a bit of a dark horse for the Olympics because he has that razor sharp focus, that drive that I think he's going to fly under the radar a lot, but he's really, really good. So yeah, that's about it on the Pan American Champs. Through this, what you've seen is archive photos. At the time of doing this on Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Tuesday night, there's still no photos up on the IFSC website, so I'll be using my own photos from earlier. If you guys check the IFSC website, I'm sure in a day or two the photos will appear. You can see them there. Obviously the live streams are on the IFSC YouTube page for anyone that wants to look at. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As I said, weird to do a competition review for a competition I wasn't at because I don't get the insight that I normally have. I'm on the outside looking in, weird perspective, but I still really enjoyed the event. There were some things I would have liked to have seen go differently, but it's seldom you'll ever walk out of an event, especially after seeing more than 140 events. It's seldom that you'll walk out of an event and say, that was a showstopper. I thought the women's was unbelievable. I just thought the men's was a bit disappointing. Hope you guys like this. As usual, please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends that I'm doing this, and we will talk to you very soon for a pre-Studio Block Masters report. Thank you.